In Ukraine, a destructive frenzy against the country's anti-fascist past has spread like a plague. Memorials to Soviet soldiers who fought and died to free Ukraine from the Nazis are being desecrated in mass.
Whoa.
Yeah!
Whoa. Oh, yeah. Whoa.
Should we be at all surprised? After all, Russia said it launched its military operation because of the worrying number of people who still glorify Nazism in Ukraine. And since the operation began, Kiev's attempts to whitewash World War II history have been kicked into overdrive, like when Ukraine's government removed and profusely apologized for a picture of former Japanese Emperor Hirohito that it posted in a video on Twitter.
Our sincere apologies to Japan for this mistake. We had no intention to offend the friendly people of Japan.
Hirohito was depicted alongside Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini, since they were, let's not forget, the leaders of the Axis powers in World War II. But just because Tokyo, which now supplies Kiev with military equipment, found it offensive, Ukraine decided to rewrite that part of history. Kiev's also decided to end its participation in a historical initiative of the Commonwealth of Independent States, which was intended to protect the memory of courage and sacrifice demonstrated by the Soviet people during World War II. And for some reason, that's something Ukraine doesn't want to do.
Historical memory is being destroyed by the hands of Ukrainians, but it's the people who rule Ukraine who are destroying it. The main country that rules Ukraine is the United States. The main goal is to pit Russia and Ukraine against each other, to destroy historical memory, to inspire the younger generation into believing that Russia has always oppressed Ukraine, that Stepan Bandera was a great Ukrainian hero. It is for this purpose that they want young people not to know the history of World War II, so they do not know that Russians and Ukrainians are brothers. A lot of Ukrainians were heroes of that war, my father included, and now the West is trying to divide us.
Arguably the most absurd was Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's attempt to liken Russia's military operation in Ukraine to the extermination of the Jews at the hands of the Nazis.
We are in different countries and in completely different conditions. But the threat is the same for both us and you, the total destruction of the people, state, culture. And even the names, Ukraine, Israel. On February 24, 1920, the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany was founded. The party that took millions of lives, destroyed entire countries, tried to kill nations. 102 years later, on February 24, a criminal order was issued to launch a full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Needless to say, some Israeli officials were not impressed and reacted with outrage.
War is always a terrible thing. But every comparison between a regular war, as difficult as it is, and the extermination of millions of Jews in gas chambers in the framework of the final solution is a complete distortion of history.
Zelensky's government hasn't been alone in this alarming trend of rewriting World War II history, though. For the past 6 years, Russia's UN proposal to combat the glorification of Nazism around the world has been met with only 2 votes against, the U.S. and Ukraine. At the same time, Washington says it's canceling this year's annual Arlington Cemetery ceremony that commemorates the meeting of U.S. and Soviet troops shortly before the Nazis' defeat in 1945. No doubt a startling trend of historical revisionism is growing throughout the Western world, one in which the Soviets who liberated the concentration camps of Eastern Europe are called oppressors, and the Ukrainian neo-Nazis who glorify a past of anti-Semitic Nazi collaborators are called heroes.
Now they are instilling in Ukrainians that Hitler considered Ukrainians as Aryans, equal to himself. But there was nothing like that. He considered Ukrainians subhuman. Stepan Bandera himself was arrested by the Nazis because he advocated for Ukraine's independence. Hitler's goal in Ukraine was enslavement, extermination, and the settlement of rich Ukrainian lands by German colonists. Sooner or later, people will see the light. People will understand that Ukraine and Ukrainians were just expendable for the goals of the West.